Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Sammons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Rock DuBois, the founder of Rock DuBois Coaching, joining us. Rock will be sharing more about his founding story and giving us a glimpse into plans for future growth. So let's jump straight in. Rock, welcome to Founders Future.
Thanks, Olivia. Happy to be here.
Awesome. We're super excited to have you here. So can you take us back to the beginning? What
Yeah.
specific problem inspired you to start Rock DuBois Coaching?
Yeah. So back in 2013, I was actually working as an associate chief of staff for a gentleman based in Barbados. And we did a lot of talking all day, for business stuff, personal stuff, mixing here and there. So one day we were a few months into our contract and he was like, you know what? I think you'd be a great life coach. And I said, what? I don't really know what life coaching entails. I asked him, what do you mean? He said, I just think that you're such a good listener and you always give like spot on advice and nobody listens like you do. I just think you'd be so good at it if you did it for business. And I said, okay, thank you. I mean, I appreciate that. He's like, actually, you know what? I feel so strongly about you being a great coach that I would pay for you to get certified to be a life coach. You go and find the program you want to do and I'll pay for it. And that'll be the end of it. And I was like, I'm not going to pass up free education, right? Because hello, it's a great opportunity, even if I never used it, just to have the skills that come along with it. And so that was the start of the journey as I went and got my first certification from an ICF accredited institution. And then I started coaching in the background. It wasn't my full-time gig, but I did start taking on a few clients here and there. I didn't really know who I was at the time as a coach and who I wanted to serve. So it was very all over the place. I even did some acting coaching at the time because I have a background in entertainment. So I'm like, I saw the overlap of how when I would watch an actor come in with not knowing the material, not knowing how to perform it, to then becoming this really well-formed character. I'm like, wait, I think there's something here about what I can do for people outside of this sphere. So I decided to expand it. And now I'm here, however, 12 years later, still doing it and bigger and better than ever. So that's my origin story.
Awesome, amazing. And 12 years on, still going strong and still here. That's incredible to hear.
Yeah.
So walk us through a little bit about the offer and what you sell and who you sell to and that side of things.
Yeah, the offer has changed pretty significantly over the years, but where I stand currently and how I see my business being sustained is I operate very differently than a lot of other coaches, and my clients really appreciate that. Typically, when you meet with a coach, they're like, hey, we'll give you access to this course, and we'll do one session every 2 weeks or one session a month, and I'll get really clear on your goals, and you'll have these great outcomes. And I just don't operate that way. I don't have a course. I don't have something you can buy into in that way. And in fact, what I actually offer is an open concierge model, meaning my clients work with me on retainer for a period of no minimum than 3 months. And we get really clear on what their goals are and the obstacles that are currently standing in their way of having that alignment that they're really after. What that allows is that clients don't save their sessions. So they come to me when they need coaching. So if it's 3 times a week, if it's one time a week, if it's a text in between, they have that kind of level of access and high touch support that they need to make sure that we're not falling off and that they can stay really aligned to the really ambitious goals that they've set for themselves. And so that's a really large distinction in my practice. I typically work with mid-6 to ultra high net worth individuals, people who have been really successful in business, maybe even have their own businesses, their own little empires, or have moved very quickly up the ranks within corporate structure, whether they're lawyers or venture capitalists or entrepreneurs in tech. I run the gamut of that. So I'm industry agnostic is what I like to say, both men and women. But what I really notice is that these people who have spent a significant amount of time becoming very successful have left a lot of things behind on the way up. And so, specifically, relationships with their significant others or with their families, with their teams, there's a lot of trust that's eroded or lack of trust to begin with. And so, we're really going and taking a step back and helping them get back in touch with who they really are, what their why is, and who are they without the success. And that really just starts to change things pretty drastically for them from the very first session that we have. So, yeah, that's a little bit about who I serve and how I do it. One last thing I'll say is I base my whole business on this idea that we need to shift identity if you want permanent change. A lot of coaches or consultants will bring you to solutions. They'll teach you methods and tactics and strategies. And unfortunately, you're coming to them as a person who can't currently use those things. So they're only going to get you so far before they start to break. And so my objective is to actually change who you are on the foundational level so we can reinstall the stuff that is aligned to that identity and create a permanent shift. I like to coach myself out of a job is what I like to say.
Love that. And I suppose I love the fact that you intertwine that with the kind of their journey as well. As you say, you're not setting up scheduled appointments. It's when they need it, it's allocated to what they need to grow, and then obviously reaching the goals and how they're getting there.
Yeah.
Incredible. So how are you currently acquiring customers? What channels and methods have you found most effective?
Yeah. So because I am, not to toot my own horn, but because I'm very good at what I do, and for the level of individual that I work with, most of my business is referrals. And my clients don't like to do video testimonials and do all this gimmicky things that you do see on a lot of websites. They're very private. They want exclusivity and they want confidentiality. And so a lot of my business comes through referrals. I have a lot of repeat clients and a lot of boomerang clients. And what I mean by that is I'll talk to somebody through referral or through LinkedIn or another channel like my website or Psychology Today profile, which are both kind of high traffic drivers for me. And we'll just talk. And maybe at that point in time, they don't believe that this is the right time for them to start, or they have some qualm about the investment or whatever it is. And I don't chase those clients. I don't make it my job to convince them that they need to work with me. I don't want that type of client anyway. And a boomerang client is the one that comes back a year, 6 months, 2 years later, and they're like, hey, remember me? Like we talked a little while ago. My problems have gotten a lot worse and I've lost a lot more money trying to figure it out on my own. So I'm ready to do the work now. And I'm like, okay, since then, my investment has gone up and like my client load is pretty heavy. I'm not just going to take you on just because you need me now. So I would say that my largest funnel or channel that people come to me is through referrals, but then also through my Psychology Today profile, since I was certified to have a listing on there as a certified coach, as well as my website, or kind of my three main funnels. LinkedIn is not a big thing. I post on there every once in a while, but I've realized that a lot of my clients don't spend a ton of time scrolling on LinkedIn because they're building really big things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that's a challenge, as you mentioned, going for those higher end and that top market is they do want to keep themselves confidential. But
Yeah.
then that boomerang term that you're using there is great. So that the way I'm understanding it, it's like a long-term referral. So you've made the contact and then, yeah, okay, you're not ready now, but you will be when you come across those problems and when you have that
Yeah.
kind of bottleneck in your own life. So I love that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned they're the one-to-one coaching. What does the sales process look like? Are you contacting the customers from the outreach?
Yeah, I don't do any specific outreach. So my clients find me, which I think is very easy for me. I don't have anybody on my team that operates. One of the things that is really important to me is alignment in how I show up. This relationship that I form with my clients is deeply intimate and deeply personal. And I'm not going to have somebody else take a sales call from the very start and you're not building a relationship with me directly, who you're going to be spending all of your time with. From the second somebody goes to my LinkedIn, goes to my website, goes to my Psychology Today profile, I am on the other side of that. Nobody else is there. It's just me. So you're going to get direct link to me from the very start. I am going to be the one that kind of sits down and gets a good strategy call in place to understand where are we, what are we facing, what are the challenges and the kind of goals that you want to set for yourself. And I'm a partner with them every step of the way from the moment of outreach.
Awesome. So it's very personal and very one-to-one connection from the start to the end. Love that
Yeah.
completely. So what would you say is the biggest bottleneck to growth right now? Would that be lead generation, finding, acquiring these customers, the sales conversion, fulfillment, or would you say that's something else completely?
I don't know if I really have a bottleneck right now, other than I'm one person delivering a really high touch experience, but the investment matches the sort of time I spend as well. I would say that if I had to think of anything, the bottleneck would be all of the back end administrative stuff that I'm doing, meaning like I have a lot of client notes, I send a lot of emails and that type of stuff. And so I know that I'm working through that with the help of AI now to help streamline that process. I can free up more time for myself. I am a dad to a 2 year old daughter, and my wife and I are massively overjoyed to have her. But we also are expecting our second child in just 2 months, a little boy. So my life is going to be further complexified by adding another child into the mix. So one of my objectives is to maintain that balance while also delivering a world-class experience for my clients. And that could potentially be another bottleneck, but I'm figuring that out as I'm leading up to that time. So I feel pretty good about my ability to balance. I do have a wait list of clients running from time to time because I don't want to sacrifice an experience just because it would be a great source of income. It's like I really want everybody to have the same high touch, deep experience and transformation that I can offer. So I won't do it just for the sake of getting a few extra dollars in the bank.
Awesome. Congrats on the second little human coming into the world there.
Thanks.
I love that. So I suppose if you had to identify one thing that if solved would make the biggest impact on your business and on the growth right now, what would that be?
Yeah, I think administratively, that would be something that would really free me up in a big
Yeah.
way. But I also think I'm in the process of deciding how I can create a website that is a little bit more streamlined. Because, like, right now, I talk a lot about the theory behind what I do, but I'm noticing that it's missing a few pieces of clarity around the full experience. And I find that the best thing for me is when a client does make it to my calendar and I get to sit down and talk with them, it's like an instant click, like it's an instant close. It's going to work. They want to sign on as soon as they possibly can. But I think that my personality is really hard and my experience is really hard to replicate on a website. So I'm trying to figure out how do I get them to understand or see that before they get to meet me so that I can even have a higher conversion rate? And like I mentioned, I do have a wait list, but the other aspiration for me over the course of my business life is I want to be able to provide business to other coaches that I've built really great relationships with and that are really highly qualified coaches. As a coach, it's really difficult oftentimes to have a sustainable, profitable, and high revenue business. And so if I can help pay it forward in some way to other people, I would really love to be able to do that. So having my website convert higher is not only going to be better for my business, but for the coaches within my network as well.
Yeah, I love that. And then growing the community from the inside out and helping each other, I feel like is a big part of the coaching consulting industry, as you just mentioned there.
Yeah.
With that being said, what are the top priorities for growth? Where do you see yourself apart from having two little humans running around in the next 12 months' time?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I also started a community called the Significance Collective. My tagline for my practice is from success to significance. It tells the story of you've done all the big things, you've earned all the money, and you've built all these big businesses, but now it's what are you leaving behind? What is your legacy going to speak to? And so I started this community within school. The platform's called the Significance Collective, and it's a great place for people from all walks of life. Some of them are previous clients, some are previous colleagues I've worked with at other businesses, and they come together to discuss all areas of life. We have a weekly group call on Friday mornings, which is great. We have really high attendance for that. And I want to grow that out more in the future. I don't think I'm ever going to offer any type of course because it doesn't feel aligned to what I can give. That could be something that gets developed in the future if it strikes me the right way. And the other thing is I have 2 books that have been written and they will be published in just the next couple of months. So that'll be another way the business will be growing and another way for me to reach more people because I am a one-to-one coach. And so I'm not doing massive workshops and group settings, even though I've done them before and I love doing them. I have a lot of energy to give to groups of people that I get to coach with. But the books are really focused on my method and weaving in my life experience to that. The book is going to be called From Success to Significance. Obviously, that's the same name as my slogan for my practice, but it's about creating purposeful and permanent transformation. But then I thought about the fact that a lot of my clients that I work with have families and they have children, specifically preteen or teenage children, and they lack connection with their kids. And so I rewrote the book to offer it as a youth novel that'll be called Being Your Best. So basically it's the same exact principles and things I talk about in the book, but in a language that's for teenagers, early teenagers, let's say like 10 to 14-ish, so that there are overlaps within that book that can create connection points with the parents who might be reading the adult version. But even if they don't, it's still a great exercise for them to go through to understand their place in the world and how they can contribute and have their own personal strength and impact from an age that's earlier than their 45-plus-year-old parents and start thinking about their legacy a lot sooner. So I'm very excited to release those in the next couple of months. All the writing has been done. The cover work is all set. It's at this point just shipping it to a printer to get out there into the hands of people. There's a really long pre-order list, which is also nice and a little daunting, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely being busy and being wanted is not one that everyone can moan about. So I love that completely.
Yeah.
And I suppose as you see the industry evolving, and you did mention that you're touching on teen issues and relationships between parents and their children. So as you see the industry evolving in the coming years, how do you see yourself positioned in that for the future?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Because of the experience I offer, a lot of coaches will niche down into a specific problem, right? They say, okay, I'm a relationship coach, or I'm an executive coach, or I'm a leadership coach. This idea of niching down is very popular and it's great for marketing, don't get me wrong, but I am not that coach. I don't believe in treating somebody's life in a silo, whereas we're only going to work on this piece of you. And so I think already I've myself to be different from other coaches in the market because what I'm doing is working with the entirety of the person in all aspects of their life to make sure that we're not just working on one thing that's going to be fine and all the other things are still suffering. And so I could see this with the rise of AI and like it being very accessible to most people. It's very easy to create a bot that can be your chat bot for if you have questions about coaching a team member or even like speaking with your significant other. Those are useful. But I think me offering this really exceptionally human driven experience that is not easily replicated through a computer is going to be something that I am very proud to drive forward and offer long term because it's just something you can't replicate with AI. You have to have a wealth of knowledge and human experience for my own experience, but also through the lives of the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I've worked with. I've learned so much about the world through the eyes of other people that you can't possibly get that from anything other than another person. So I already think I'm pretty uniquely positioned. My current clients tell me that all the time, that it is a very different experience from all of the other workshops or coaches or consultants they've worked with in the past. And it's something I'm really proud of and I will continue to hold to, even though I've been advised, oh, you got to open up into group coaching and you got to offer a course and you got to do this. I'm like, I don't want to. It doesn't feel aligned to me. It doesn't feel authentic to me. And my business is booming performing just as the way that I am. And if I have to pause and have a wait list, so be it. There's a lot of other coaches who will benefit from me not taking their clients. So I think it's a win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And just staying true to who you are and what you believe and what you want to offer is a great thing. And I'm sure many founders out there who are listening and trying to understand their point in life at the moment, it is a great connection to have. As a hypothetical resource, if you had unlimited resources, what would you implement or what would you change immediately to accelerate growth?
One of the things that I've been thinking about toying with the idea is that maybe bringing other coaches under my belt. So I have a coaching practice and I would be the head of the practice. I created something called the identity integration framework. And it's something I use with my clients from the very first real session that we have. So not just the sales call. I'm using air quotes for people who can't see me, not just from that initial sort of strategy session, but when they actually sign on and we begin that work. I've created this framework that allows them to start removing all of the stuff that isn't truly them, all of the success monsters that are in their head, all the fears they have about losing their prizes that they've acquired over the years and all of that other stuff. And so I think one of the things I really like to do is consider growing my practice in a way that I'm a multi-coach practice so that people find us, they have a trusted framework they can work within. They're trained by me, mentored by me. I've already mentored a few coaches in my time and they're doing really great. And I'm really happy to see the growth of them. But I would like to explore that going forward. One other thing that is on the horizon for me is as a parent to now a young child and soon an infant, I started the process of opening my own school called the Strong Academy, which is significant transformation and resilience for our next generation. So it's an acronym for STRONG. And so that's very much in the back of my mind as something that I want to institute and leave behind as part of my legacy. I don't want to just work with adults who have spent 40, 50, 60 years of their lives being stuck in the cycles and they're trapped in their needs and not understanding who they are. Like I have a real opportunity to help do that with a much younger generation and age group. And if I can reach kids there and their parents at the same time, we're setting up entire families and communities and networks of people who will have a positive impact on the world. And I think that's a really important thing that calls me to do it all the time.
Yeah, I love that 100%. To quote John Legend, the youth are our future. So it's one of those things where you have to really look after that and the fact that you've already tapped into that market and pushed through. Even you mentioned that previously with the book that you're working through relationship with parents and teens, and then to move on and have a school dedicated to the youth. That's absolutely incredible. Now, just to
Yeah,
switch gears a little bit as we
sure.
move through towards the end, we'll go through a bit of a lightning round.
Okay.
So, what is one tool or resource that has been a big game changer in the business so far?
One tool or resource that's been a game changer. I think chat has been like a real game changer. It's helped a lot just solidify my vision and like really articulate what it is. I have a lot of words. If in case you haven't noticed already, I can talk literally forever. And sometimes those words don't come out exactly the way that I want to. So ChatGPT has been really good in helping me really discern that. I'm also very deep into astrology and all of the natal chart work and everything. And ChatGPT is like an expert in helping me reaffirm what I already know to be true. So yeah, I would say ChatGPT has been a big one. Aside from everything else, like all the other stuff is meh. Wix is where I host my website. Google is where I have my documents and my email, but like none of that is groundbreaking stuff. But ChatGPT has been really cool to do that. And also, I created a custom GPT for my notes, my post session notes for my clients, and that's been like revolutionary. I forgot all about that until I thought about it just now, but being able to do that has been fantastic. So good stuff
Yeah,
there.
and definitely, as you said, as a solo founder and moving through on your own, that time-saving resource is just AI
Oh yeah,
taking all that work out for us.
big time. Yeah, it's great.
So, what's the best piece of advice that you received about scaling a business?
I've been given a lot of really bad advice about scaling a business through my own lens, not in practice. There's a lot of great principles in which you can apply to scaling a business, but one of the things that I write in my book that is left with me from my mom, it's not even related to business per se. And my mom passed away 6 years ago. I give a little bit of a nod to her multiple times in the book, but she used to tell us a lot when we were younger. I don't care what you do in life. You can be a trash man or you can be the president. Just always be a good person. And so I think about that and I'm like, if I'm going to build a business, I want to remember who I am throughout the process. And I just want to do it from a place of goodness. And you can easily say goodness is, oh, follow the rules and abide by what people make people happy, be pleasing. But that's not what goodness is about. Goodness, I think, is really about authenticity and doing it from a place of truth for yourself. And I think a lot of people, especially younger people today, spend a lot of time trying to be something that they're not. And throughout that process, they're trying to attract what they think is an ideal life. And it turns out really bad for them, for most people, when you live out of that place of misalignment. So for me, my best piece of advice that I've ever gotten is always be a good person. So I'm going to use that to scale.
I love that. And coming from your mum as well, it's actually incredible. And listening to you and talking to you, you comes across like you radiate as a good person. So you're definitely living and owning up to that one.
Thank you. I
So
appreciate that.
what piece of advice would you give to any founders who are out there looking to start their own journey at the moment?
I would say that one of the things that is really easy to do is be driven by money and success. This is the whole foundation of the clients in my practice. Okay, so I'm speaking as an expert, not just as a Joe Schmo on the street. Don't let money be your guide. Don't let success and accolades be your guide. Remember the reasons why you started the business you started, and keep that as your core reason, and don't deviate from that, because the second you do, you start to get out of touch with your values, you start to get out of touch with who you are, and it's a really tough hill to come back down on. And so just remember that as you scale and as money starts pouring in, you have investors left and right and people who just want to throw money at you. Just remember why you started and what message you're sending to the people who love you most every step that you take in growing your business.
Love that. And as you said before, coming back to the core values and sticking to it and just being a good person all ties into one.
Yeah.
So awesome. And that is a wrap on another inspiring episode of Founders Future. I want to thank Rock for sharing his incredible journey and insight with us today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also find more insights and resources at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses grow and accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.